Hi everyone, it's Kayla here for Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Over on the Create with Soy and Shea Patreon page, I asked my members which recipe they wanted brought back from the vault for the month of February, and they voted for the face cream recipe. So I decided to go along with that recipe as their monthly recipe. I would give them one for a face wash. Now this face wash is not actually a part of my range that I have available to my customers at the moment, but it is something that I have been making for myself, and I've been really happy with the results. I've been testing it for probably about 8 to 9 months now in my own shower. Now when I've been making it for myself, I have been making it based off of oily skin, but for this video I am actually testing making it for dry and sensitive skin, and I am loving the results of it so far as well. Now, if you do want to get your hands on the recipe for this face wash, it is over on the Create with Soy and Shea Patreon page at the $5 level for the next 3 months. So that will be for February, March, April, and it will be there for part of May as well. It will be on the $10 level for 6 months, and then after that time you'll be able to find this recipe in the $60 vault area, which is where all the recipes are stored. So if you do want to get your hands on that, come and join us over on Patreon, and there's also lots of other great benefits over there as well. And I'm also showing how to do formulating and also some soap making tips and ideas as well. So why not come and check us out? I will leave links down in the description box for you. But for now, what we're going to go and do is make this face wash. It's nice and gentle with a low foam, so it's very low irritating on the skin. There's no heating in it, so it's nice, quick and easy. Let's go. Okay, so as I say at the beginning of the video, this recipe is very quick, easy and simple to make. It does have 5 different phases, but there is no heating involved in it, so it's really quick and easy to put this together. What I've got here is a 500ml glass beaker that I'm going to be making a 300g batch of this in. Now, as I did say, I have been making this for personal use, which is why I'm only making a small batch, and this time I am making my batch that being designed for those with sensitive to dry skin, and that is the recipe that you will be getting if you come and join us over on Patreon. If you are at the $10 level, I'll also share with you some tips and changes you can make to actually make this into oily skin based as well, because that's what I've been making for myself. First thing I'm going to add into here, we're going to tear my scale out, and I'm going to add in my distilled water. Next thing I'm going to do, this is basically the water phase or phase A. I am adding in a little bit of honeycot. I'm using this because it's considered to be an active, and it also adds a great moisturizing or humectancy property into our product here, and it's really good for wash off products. If you haven't seen me do that before, whenever I'm trying to get small amounts, I do try and tip it into the cap of the bottle, which really helps control how much I'm pouring out. The next thing I'm going to add into my sort of water phase here, we'll tear that back out. I'm going to add in the extracts, and I've chosen to go with some chamomile extract because we all know that that has some very soothing properties for dry skin. It's very well known for that. So we'll get a bit of chamomile in there. And the other extract I'm going to use is a little bit of hibiscus. I love this extract. It's got a slight pink tinge to it, and it is great for smoothing skin as well as for skin firming, and it's really good in sort of anti-aging sort of products, but that's more so after that sort of ability to smooth the skin and keep it nice and calm as well. So now we've got all of those ingredients in here. That is phase A done. I'm just going to give that a mix just to make sure that that is well combined, and then we're going to work on putting phase B together. For phase B, I've got myself another jug here, and I'm going to mix in a couple of different surfactant ingredients. I have got some sodium lauryl sarsanet. This is great for creating a foam, and it's actually very gentle and mild, even though it is classified as an anionic surfactant, which is where we get that foam from out of this. To really help with the mildness of this foam, I'm also going to be using a bit of cocoa betaine. And I'm also going to be adding in another surfactant. It's actually a non-ionic surfactant, but this one actually behaves very differently to some of the others. This is capryl glucoside, and it adds more mildness and also gives added foam into the product as well. So if you don't have some of these ingredients, I do give you alternatives of what you can actually use. But one of the reasons I do like using this sodium lauryl sarsanet and the cocoa betaine together is it does create this really viscous liquid by itself, which means you can actually reduce how many other thickeners you put into your product. So I do like using them together. What I'm now going to do is combine these two phases together. So that's our phase A and phase B. I'm going to make sure I get all of this scraped out of this beaker, and then to make sure that that is well combined, I've got my little frother here. Now you don't want to incorporate too much air and create too much bubbles, so what I find best with this frother is to actually put my spatula in there, and when I turn it on, I hold the spatula against the edge of my frother, and it stops that real heavy vortex, which actually then stops some of the really big bubbles from forming. So we're going to get that well mixed in together. If I was to take that spatula away, it would create a vortex around where it's spinning, and you end up with these really big bubbles, and then you have to wait for them to settle, which can take a while. So we've got that all mixed in well. Let's move on to phase C. Okay, so phase C is all about the solubilizing fragrance into this. So again, I've got myself a little glass beaker here. I'm going to weigh out all the bits that I need. I'm going to start off with a little bit of polysorbate 20, and this has actually got two sort of purposes. It acts as a solubilizer to bring our essential oils that we're going to put into here together with that water phase, but it also has a super fatting sort of quality to it as well, so it adds a really nice texture into the wash off products. So for scent in facial products, that is when I always use essential oils as opposed to fragrance oils, but you could use them if you wanted to. And I like to keep my fragrance in facial products quite low as well, so you may find that you may want to add more in, but as a personal preference, I prefer my fragrance in facial products to be low, so it's not irritating around the eyes and stuff like that. I am using a blend of French lavender and rose geranium today, and both of these essential oils are meant to be very good for people with dry and sensitive skin, and it also, both of them have some sort of anti-inflammatory sort of properties to them as well, so should help with calming the skin down. So let's get some French lavender in here too, and the two of these combined, they just smell so nice. And then the final thing I'm going to add into this phase C is some vitamin E. So let's get this one measured out, and I have actually got a little bit of information about the type of vitamin E that I am using in this particular product and why I chose to go with this particular one over on the recipe sheet. Just going to grab one of these pipettes I had and just give that a good stir just to make sure that that is all mixed together, and then we're going to pour that into our phase AB that we created. And this has taken on a slightly milky appearance as the water and the polysorbate 20 work together to bring all of those essential oils into that mix. Again, I'm going to grab my little mixer here, pushing it up against the spatula and just giving that a bit of a mix, making sure not to incorporate too much air while I'm doing it. Okay, so that's all now combined, and you can see that this is really, really liquidy. This would actually be good if you wanted to put it into a foaming bottle. If you added in some preservative, you could then add that into a foaming bottle and create a foaming face wash. But I do want to actually thicken this up and make it into a sort of gel-like face wash. So we'll move on to phase D, which is all about thickening. So I'm going to be thickening this using some xanthan gum, but when you are using xanthan gum, you do need to create a bit of a slurry, and the best one is to use a little bit of glycerin. There are other things you can use, but glycerin is good because it does add that humectant property into your product, giving it such a wonderful feel as well. So I've just poured out my glycerin in there, and now I'm going to be adding some xanthan gum, and I'm just using regular grade xanthan gum. You can get a few different ones. If you want this to be nice and clear, you would probably be better off using some xanthan gum clear. Just while I'm actually testing this one, I am going to be using just regular xanthan gum because I'm not too bothered if it doesn't come up completely clear. So let's get just a little bit more in there, and we'll get that mixed in and create that bit of a slurry, and that just makes it so much easier to incorporate into the mix. It means you don't get those sort of, they call them fish eyes, or those little blobby sort of bits floating through your mixture. So just making sure that that is well incorporated into each other with no sort of obvious bumps and lumps in there. Just smushing it down with my spatula until I can see that there are no lumps. Something I will recommend when using xanthan gum, and I recommend it based on the fact that I've been there, I've done that, and have seen the results, I would actually recommend investing in cosmetic grade xanthan gum rather than the food store-bought stuff. I have used the stuff that you've bought in health food stores and supermarkets and stuff like that before, and it can be a little bit unpredictable, doesn't always work very well, makes products really cloudy and everything else. But I have found that there is a big difference between that and ones that you get from off of your cosmetic or your raw ingredient suppliers. So do recommend making that investment into cosmetic grade xanthan gum. You'll see a big difference. Now I've got it well combined, I'm going to pour it into this container here, and again I'm going to mix it all together. That has had a good mix, and I can see that it is starting to thicken up now. You're not going to get a true sense of how thick this is going to be until it's actually sat here for about 24 hours. So before we do that, what I am going to do is I am going to add in my preservative. That is our final phase here. So let's grab our scales back in, pop it on here. So I'm quite pleased with how that is looking right now. As I said, it does need to sit here for about 24 hours before we can make a true assessment about how thick this actually is. But what I'm going to do before I do that, because this is a face product, I want to read the pH of this. So to do my pH reading, I am going to be using a pH monitor. Now in the past I have used the little pH strips, but I decided to treat myself to one of these this year. If you do come and join me over on Patreon at the $10 level, there is actually an exclusive video there showing how, or showing an unboxing of this, how I actually got it set up, and then doing a test on a product using both the pH strips and this machine, and why it's actually important to get one. If you are interested in getting yourself your own pH meter, I will leave links down below to where I got this in Australia, and if you are overseas, where else you can buy this particular meter from. To do your pH readings with this particular meter, you do need to have a 10% solution of your product for it to be able to take that reading. So what I'm going to do is pour about 5 grams of our face wash into this little container here. and I'm going to grab some distilled water, and I'm going to take this all the way up to 50 grams. So we've got 10% solution. Just going to grab myself a clean spoon to give that a mix. Important not to use any of your dirty utensils so you don't add any other contaminants into your sort of sample piece. That looks like it has now all dissolved. What I'm now also going to do is grab myself just another small beaker here, and I'm going to pour in some more distilled water just so that we can clean the probe off. So we're going to grab our meter here, we're going to turn it on. What I tend to like to do, you get 2 pH sort of liquids, you get a 7 and a 4 with it. I actually had an accident with my 7 and tipped it out, spilt it everywhere, so I'm actually going to use my 4 here. First thing I want to actually do is pop this, and pop the cap out of the way. I'm just going to pop it and clean it off in my distilled water. And the first thing I want to do is just pop it into my number 4, and I want to make sure that it is reading my pH of the number 4 correctly, which it is. You can see there's a tiny little smiley face on there. It says it's 4.1, and that is because of the temperature that we are sitting at. When you actually look at the side of this bottle, which I'm going to put the cap on so I don't spill this one as well, when you look at the bottle it tells you the temperature and what the pH will actually read at. So I know that that is reading well. What I'm now going to do is sit it into our 10% solution and let it find out what the pH of this product is, and I'm aiming for something between 5.5 and 6, and I am sitting at 5.9, which is where my little smiley face has come up. It's flicking up to 6, but I'm going to say that is possibly to do with our temperature. So I'm really happy with where the pH is sitting on that. If your pH is sitting really low at around the 4%, which can happen if you put things like cucumber in, you're going to actually feel a tightening of the skin when you come to using that product. It will feel, when you get a real cleansing sort of feel. So it is really important to make sure that you've got that sort of balance with your skin products, just to make sure that it's not too tight on the skin. Now you can see in that sort of 10 minutes of taking that pH, this has really thickened up on me. What I'm going to do, I have my little silicone cling here. I'll move those out the way. I am going to put that over the top of here. I'm going to leave this to sit overnight, and then we're going to come back to it once it's sat. We'll have a look at how much thicker it has got, and then we will bottle it up. Okay, so our mix has now been sitting here overnight, and it has thickened up beautifully. Now the only reason I would actually say to sit and leave this overnight is if this is your first time actually making this particular product, because you want to see how thick this is going to be. So if you are coming to grab that recipe, make sure, as I say in the recipe, to make small batches first, and make maybe 100 grams worth, and then see if you like the consistency. If it's too thick for you, you just need to reduce how much xanthan gum, because all xanthan gums do have different grades and how much they thicken. And then if it is too thin, just add a little bit more xanthan gum. Once you are happy with how much xanthan gum you are using in your sample pieces, that's when you would actually increase the size of your recipe. You use the amount of xanthan gum that you prefer to use, and then because this is cold processed, you can actually bottle it up straight away, and you don't have to leave it sit overnight. If I was unhappy with how thick this is right now, the only thing I can really do is put that into a test container for myself and start from scratch. There's no way you'd want to be adding extra xanthan gum in here, because this is already at 100%, so we don't want to add anything more in there. So what I'm going to do is actually pour this into a piping bag. It's smelling really good with that combination of essential oils in here. That geranium is really shining through. I'm just going to pop that out the way. I'm only going to cut off just a very fine tip off the bottom of my bag here, and I'm going to fill up 2 different containers. I personally prefer to use a squeeze bottle. I've actually got a new one out for the purpose of this video, but usually I just keep refilling my own. I do not refill customer bottles, I'm afraid, sorry, just my own. And the other thing I'm going to do is a pump bottle as well, just to show that it can be done in both. And what we might do first of all is fill that one up, because it will give me a bit more control. I'm just squeezing it into my bottle here, and then once I get a bit more control of this bag, I'm not going to be able to fill this whole bottle up, but I do want to fill up my little tube here. The tubes are really good for if you are traveling, whereas the pump bottle is really good just to have next to, say, the bathroom sink, so you can just pump a little bit out and wash your face with it. The other thing I would normally do is, if I was making this as a product to sell, I would actually be weighing this on some scales to make sure that the amounts I'm adding in here are accurate. But because this is for my own personal use, I am just putting what I can into each of them. Now that I've got those filled, I'm just going to pop the cap on the bottom of here, and we'll pop a pump bottle onto the top of this, or you could actually put one of those clip lock bottles or the flip lids on them as well, like I use on my fragrance oils. But for this one I'm going to put the pump bottle. I'm going to take these off. It is so hot and humid today. It's been on and off rain. They just feel horrible. Now, even though these are for myself, I still like to label all of my own products up in my bathroom, just in case we do have visitors who come in and pick something up off my bathroom shelf and use it. They can actually always double check what it is that they're using, and if there are any ingredients in them that they don't like. The other thing is, I also like to label them if I'm testing a product like I am in this one, by put them in the containers that I plan to actually use with the style of label I plan to use as well. I can test how well that label is going to stand up throughout the whole processes. So in this case I'm putting on a waterproof label. I want to make sure that while people are using it with the particular ingredients that are in here, that the labels aren't going to wash off and things like that, so I can make sure that I'm labeling it appropriately by the time I do put this one out on the shelf. So that is it. That is my face wash all done up. Just to give you a very quick demonstration on how this one is going to work and what it looks like, I'll just wash my hands with it. So I'm just going to squeeze some out of the container there, and it creates just a little bit more water in my hands, that's it, and it creates a really gentle foam, because we don't want too big of bubbles around the eyes, because we don't want them bursting and causing them to sting. But it does create this beautiful silky gentle foam. It feels really nice and creamy on the skin as well, so it leaves the skin feeling nice, nicely nourished and moisturized. So I hope you have enjoyed watching how I have made my face wash. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. And again, if you want to get your hands on the recipe, come and join us over on the Patreon page. Until the next video comes out, I hope you have a great one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye.